I'll just start off this session by thanking Charan. Charan is a PMRF, Prime Minister's Research Fellow at IIT Kanpur. He's a professional in the cybersecurity space. He has agreed to be a talk to give a talk to us with respect to cybersecurity. By the way, this is Cyber Jagrukta Divas. This is an event that is being organized by the government of India, and we'll have a talk. I think every Wednesday, every first Wednesday of the month for some time. So this time we have Charan with us. Just to give a brief introduction, so Venkata Sai Charan Putrebu is an experienced cybersecurity professional. He's currently working with Professor Sandeep Shukla as a PMRF, Prime Minister's Research Fellow at the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, IIT Kanpur. His current research work spans the detection of stealthy malware in sensitive corporate networks. The goals of his research includes smart detection techniques for detecting these malwares at different sources, for example, such as the end host, the network, or even at the DNS, and then overall build a next generation state of the art malware detection system. He did his master's also in the field of cybersecurity only from TIFAC core at Amrita University, Coimbatore. It's a center identified by the Ministry of Science and Technology as a Center for Cybersecurity Research in India. In addition to that, he has also worked in industry. He has worked with Cisco at different L2 and S3 level protocols, and he has also worked at Dell RSA, which is basically a security wing which works on intrusion detection and prevention systems. So here he's going to present us some facts about cybersecurity. Charan, just to give you an idea, we have a variety of audience here, mostly students who are interested in cybersecurity. And just to give you an idea that Charan would be with us for one more meeting as well. So this is just the first part of his talk, and we'll have the second part of his talk whenever it is scheduled in the next month or so. So from here onward, I'm just going to hand over the podium to Charan. Charan, I'm just going to mute myself, and you can now take over.
Yeah, thank you, Saurabh, sir, for your kind introduction. So am I supposed to share my screen? So is it okay, right?
Yeah, if you can.
Okay. So I hope you are able to see my screen. So
yeah, we all can see your screen.
Okay. So here we are. So I welcome you all to this first video series on, first webinar on advanced persistent threats, attribution and detection. So in this part one, we will try to scratch some basics about advanced persistent threats. And so this is the high level agenda for today's talk. So I will give a brief introduction about what motivated me to pursue this particular area as a part of my PhD. And then we will try to look at some basic concepts that we need to understand before jumping into the actual APT, world. So we need to understand what is advanced persistent threats and its life cycle phases, and what are all the current global trends in APT field, and what are all the different naming conventions that are there for APTs, and why we will call them as sophisticated attacks, and why these many of the countries across the globe are considering these APT attacks as a national threat incidents, and etc. So in the later part we will try to look into some case studies as well, like Carbonac APT attack and APT1 investigation done by the Mandiant security firm. And towards the end, we will try to look at some state-of-the-art APT attribution techniques like 4C model and Diamond model and MECTIC framework. And then we will have a conclusion and we will have some discussion about the preliminary concepts. And in the second part of this video lecture, that is going to be in the next month, so I will try to give some glimpse about the state of the art research in APT detection mechanisms. So this is the high level idea of this whole series of talks on advanced persistent threats. So let's get started. So I will start with the incident which motivated me to pursue this area. So I was part of Nexus 7K data center switch team in the Cisco Bangalore in around 2016 or 17. So at that time, there is a particular incident happened. So this is basically the switch, and there is a huge amount of machines are connected to these devices, and we used to test different L2 and L3 protocols in this switch and Cisco Bangalore. And from San OS, US, we used to push huge amount of traffics to this switch to perform the stress testing in some cases. So one day what happened is that, one of the employees credentials got compromised, and his VPN credentials got compromised. And usually it has to be private, but unfortunately one of the public interface got exposed to the outside world. And we see a lot of malicious activities on that day. And so because of that thing, there are many machines connected to that particular LAN interface got infected with the Petya ransomware. And there is a lot of discussion at that point. There is a lot of discussion about this state sponsored APT groups and sandworm group, and what is this Carbonac attack. They have compromised similarly the switching environment in the Europe banking system, and which resulted in $3 million loss to the entire across the Europe. So there is a lot of discussion happening at that time. So that was the key motivation for me. So at that time I was not aware of anything related to APT. So I just sat and I went through a lot of literature, and so it got excited, because APTs are not just like any other malware. So they have a very classic level of payload executions, and they used to perform, they are very agile in nature. So basically the entire life cycle phases of APT are very agile. So actors used to continuously change the tools, techniques, procedures that they are using in this sophisticated attacks. So that was the motivation for me to pursue this area. Now we will jump in and start understanding some basic concepts related to advanced persistent threats. So first we need to ask some basic fundamental questions. So what is APT? So the each word in this particular abbreviation has a specific meaning behind this particular term. So the advanced, so these attacks are very sophisticated, so that the traditional world cool systems and the intrusion detection systems and the firewalls may not detect them at all, and they stay low under the radar for a long time. And these malware authors, which are who is involved in these APT campaigns, they design and develop and deliver the malwares in a unique way. And they have very unique strategy about the malware deployment. And persistent means these APT malware or APT attacks are not just like any other ransomware attacks or traditional bot attacks. So they just don't hit and run, so they stay inside the network for a long time undetected. And they don't usually change the target. So they choose the target, and they come out again and again with different tools, techniques, procedures, until that particular system gets compromised. So this is the sophistication level. And they use after exploitation, they stay inside the network for a long time. So they will try to observe the user patterns, and they will try to record the video sessions, and they used to push those payloads or push those observed patterns to external control and command server. So based on that, they will try to gain the knowledge about the whole entire architecture and the networking architecture of the whole organization, etc. And coming to the threat part, so these are mostly most of these APT attacks are state sponsored attacks. So they have a very good muscle power in terms of infrastructure and in terms of malware design. So there is a dedicated teams working 24/7 for designing and execution of these payloads. And so these have a very strategic motivation. These attacks have a very strategic motivations. For example, all the Chinese APT groups that will work along with the 5 years plan of official Chinese governments. And they used to work very closely with the People Liberation Army, that is a military force of China. And they used to work according to the instructions of this People Liberation Army. And So if you clearly see, so these are all very targeted attacks, and they are not just any kind of hacktivism kind of thing. So these are very targeted attacks, and they basically in the most of the times they perform, you know, espionage kind of attacks. So they stay inside the network, and they used to exfiltrate the sensitive data. But in some very rare cases, they used to go for the sabotage variant of payloads also. So this is the high level overview of APTs. And before actually looking into what is this APT tools, techniques, tactics, and how these security firms used to identify these APTs, we need to understand the life cycle phases of this APT. So this is a very key slide in this entire presentation. So we have broadly six phases in this APT life cycle. So we will have a first phase as the initial reconnaissance phase. So in this particular phase, the attacker try to do a lot of research about the victim networks, and they used to come up with the necessary plan and tools, techniques, procedures to compromise that particular system. So this is the part of initial compromise phase. Then the second phase was this is initial reconnaissance phase. Then the second phase was initial compromise phase. So in this initial compromise phase, the attacker might look for, you know, the open vulnerabilities in this particular network, and they will try to exploit the already existing vulnerabilities, or in some cases they might purchase the zero-day vulnerabilities from the dark web as well. So this is about the initial compromise phase. After initial compromise phase, they will try to attackers try to establish the foothold in the network. So they will try to install backdoors in the strategic positions of the network, and they will try to, you know, and they will try to perform, you know, replicate itself into another machine. So they will try to recognize, is there any antivirus present in this system? So if there is any security service running in that machine, so they don't install these kind of payloads in this particular system. So this all comes under establishing foothold phase. After establishing foothold, so they will try to escalate series of privileges like ownership privileges, driver privileges, and, you know, they will try to stop the firewalls in the local machines, and then they will try to perform inter VLAN reconnaissance, and try to gather the sensitive data, and they will perform some uh, escalations at the, you know, network level to get the root access, etc. So this is part of escalating privileges phase. So after escalating privileges and lateral movement, so they will try to move laterally from one network to another network within the organization in search of the sensitive information that they are targeting for. And in the pre-final stage of this APT lifecycle is data exfiltration phase. So in this data exfiltration phase, after going across all the networks of this particular organization, they will collect the sensitive data that they want, and they will use the staging server. So all the collected data will be pushed to a centralized server in that particular network, and from there they will use different techniques called domain generation algorithms. Like it will be used to, communicate to external control and command server. So external control and command server means machine that attacker is using in the outside to push these payloads to the attacker's machine. So that is called as a control and command server. So he will use different techniques like custom encryption. So they will never use the traditional old school AES, DES kind of thing. So they will write their own encryption mechanisms, and they will encrypt that data with their own encryption mechanisms, and they will push that payloads to external control and command server. So after performing this data exfiltration phase, they will try to, clear the tracks from all the machines, and they will try to erase the logs, and they will try to erase all kind of evidences and the footholds that they left in the victim machine. And there's in sometimes they might leave that backdoors in very rare cases if they want to revisit that particular organization. So this is the broad idea of this life cycle phases of APT. Although if you from a theoretical perspective, if you can see that this is this look very easy and anybody can say that okay, this is just like any other software development model, so they will do just perform series of actions. But in real time it was not just like that. So it needs to have a dedicated planning, perfection, and in strategic execution to bypass various level of security mechanisms in the sensitive corporate networks. So I can compare this with archery. So if you are watching archery from TV, we can say that oh, we just missed the target. But if you are really aiming and on the board, if you are really practicing it, then you will understand the real complexity of this game, right? So this is just APT attacks are just similar to that. So in order to illustrate betterly, I have quoted some examples from the literature that we have gone through in this last 2 years. So for example, the Deep Panda. So Deep Panda is a Chinese state-sponsored APT group. So they came to know that many of the networks or organizations across the world are using Akinetic scanners for protecting their peripheral level, right? I mean, at the firewall level, they use Akinetic scanners to scan the entire network. So these Deep Panda groups are very clever enough to exploit that particular Akinetic scanners, and they have found a 0-day in this particular Akinetic scanner, and they have used that as a backdoor to enter into many of the sensitive organizations. And similarly, in the second thing is that the snake groups. So snake groups will basically perform watering holes attacks on content management services. So watering hole attacks means they will compromise a very popular site or a very popular web page that the most of the users are using, and whoever visit that page will get the malicious payload downloaded to their machine, and then by this way they used to intrude into the targeted networks. This is called as snake group tactics in terms of APT. And the third one is, so they APT groups are very intelligent enough, so they never dump all their payloads in the single go. So they use multi-stage malware. So initially they will drop very lightweight payloads, and from there they use very clever techniques called hash mapping. So every malware payload has inbuilt a hash map inside that particular payload. So it will continuously talk to the external control and command server by using a simple hashes. So we will look into that particular hash map working in the upcoming slides when we are discussing about the Carbonac APT thing. But all the message exchange between the malware payload and the external control and command server will happen only through the hash, so that the traditional intrusion detection systems may not detect them at all. And in the data exfiltration phase also, they use domain generation algorithm. So that means they used to randomly grab 2 or 3 names from the dictionary, and they used to append that names together to form a domain name which looks like a legitimate domain name, but it is a malicious domain name. So if somebody is trying to connect to that machine, so it will be connected to the control and command server. For example, I will give you an example for this malicious domain names for the better understanding. So if you type manygoodtimes.com, so many good times, so these are 3 random words that they have picked up from the dictionary, and they have attached it together, and they have registered that particular domain. So that particular domain is a malicious domain. So if malware is trying to connect to that particular domain, so the firewalls or intrusion DNS level filtering mechanisms may not stop them at all, but it is actually the malicious domain name, and that then the malware will try to resolve that IP, and then it will try to establish a connection to that control and command server. So that is about domain generation algorithm. And as I said earlier, they don't use the custom, traditional AES, DES, and RSA kind of, encryption mechanism, public key encryption. So they will write their own encryption mechanisms to, encrypt the communication or encrypt the data that they are pushing to the control and command server, so that even though if you intercept in between, you can't understand what they are actually sending, so you don't have the key. So this will give a broad picture about how these sophisticated attacks are performed by different state sponsored groups. So actually the security firm FireEye did a analysis, and they did a survey on different APT attacks, and it was found that on an average it will take 146 days to identify a particular APT attack after the initial compromise phase. So now you can understand how these APT attacks are sophisticated enough to bypass the traditional layer of security. So okay, so now we will look into some state-of-the-art cases in terms of APT investigation or APT research. So the first one was APT-1 investigation done by the Mandiant. So this APT-1 belongs to the Chinese government, as I said earlier, People Liberation Army. So this was targeting on various English-speaking countries to exfiltrate various sensitive data like like copyright information. And so basically this group will work according to the Chinese 12th five-year plan. So many of the threat actors are perform this kind of sophisticated attacks based on the requirements of the government. So this was similar to that, and in this particular investigation, Mandiant has investigated and various organizations like roughly around 1,000 victim networks, and they have scanned 2,000 victim networks, and they have got some various thousands of malware samples and different 40 to 50 malware families that are only used in this particular APT-1 case. And so they have tracked down the users or culprits behind this particular attack, and Ugly Gorilla was the famous name. So they have identified the Ugly Gorilla. So he is the threat actor behind this particular cyber espionage thing, and they have identified the exact location from where this particular operation got executed. So this is the People Liberation Army office. So they have reversed the IP addresses of in the control and command servers to identify from where this particular attack got originated. And so this particular Ugly Gorilla was admirer of this Professor Zhang. So he was the father of Chinese cyber warfare. So from his profile and through some dark web forms, they have found out that the Ugly Gorilla's real identity. So he's a student at some Chinese university. So he's around 18 years of age. So now you can see how countries are recruiting this kind of researchers into these APTs. And we will look into this particular investigation in detail when we are discussing about the APT attribution. So this is the glimpse about APT-1 investigation done by the Mandiant. And coming to the second case, this was about the Corbanak APT campaign. So this particular APT campaign was organized by the Russian state-sponsored group, and they have compromised more than hundreds of banking organizations across the Europe, and they have stolen almost around $3 billion, and they have compromised the very sensitive network called SWIFT networks, which used to transfer the international funds. And they have bypassed the ATM networks also. And after this incident came into the limelight when some ATM machines in the Europe started dispensing cash automatically without inserting any card. So from there, the Kaspersky, the security firm Kaspersky has investigated this particular fraud, and they come up with the huge APT campaign, and from this Russian APT group. So in this particular campaign, in the initial compromise phase, they use the spear phishing emails with CPL files. So CPL means the control panel items. So this will be stored in Windows System 32 folder, and so usually antivirus will not take this kind of will not very concentrate on this kind of strategic locations. So they have pushed the payloads to that particular strategic locations, and from there they have downloaded the additional payloads, and they never deployed the payloads when the avp.exe or avpui.exe is running. So these belongs to the traditional antivirus services running in the system. So if the services are running, so they stayed inside that particular, they didn't touch that machine. And once this machine got compromised, so they stayed in this particular bank organizations for months, more than 3 to 4 months, and they have recorded the key logs of keystrokes of every victim machine, and they have took the screenshots, and they have recorded the videos of the user flows, and they have created the RDP sessions to see the remote users or bank employees screens, and they have pushed these payloads to their control and command server. So they, as I said earlier, they have used a very tactical or advanced technique called hash mapping. So that means all the communication between the malware and the control and command server will happen through this hash only. So so the control and command server will just send a hash to this malware payload. So based on that particular hash, it will map this thing to this hash map, and then it will perform the respective action. So let's say if they have sent this particular flag, then it will try to download the executable from control and command server and then execute it. So if a particular hash value matches, then it will try to update the malware. It will try to scan the network. So all the operations will be done by using this hash exchange mechanisms. And any intrusion detection system may not detect them, because hash exchange is quite common across the network. So we can't stop exchanging the hashes between various different servers, etc. So that's how they have masqueraded this particular in this particular APT campaign. And when they are investigating in this in the control and command servers of the victim network, so they have designed their own video players to decode the encrypted traffic that they are pushing from the victim networks or bank networks. So they will encrypt the payload with some unique custom encryption, and this video payload this video player can able to decrypt that videos, and they used to display or play that video. So they have very sophisticated teams running behind this campaign. So after doing all this, they have used a very strategic in the strategic locations of their malware payloads. They have used the Chinese words to mislead the global attention. So it was basically originated from Russia, but they have used the Chinese words in the strategic positions to masquerade that this was the attack originated from the Chinese groups. So this is the high level idea about the Carbonac attack, and now we will try to understand what is this naming conventions related to APT. So if you are trying to read some particular blogs or security articles, you will hear about APT1, Red October, and Cloud Atlas, etc., etc. So what is the standard naming conventions with respect to APT? So in order to answer this question, we need to go through a series of process that the security firms will usually do. So whenever some incident happens, these security firms will go and collect the indicators of compromise. These are all the digital footprints that the attackers left in that victim machine, and they used to collect these indicators of compromise, and they used to cluster them together as intrusion sets. So here the key thing is that the attackers or hackers are creatures of habit. So they used to repeat this kind of patterns in various other attacks also. Sometimes they used to take the payloads or extract the payloads from other APT campaigns, and they use them in their APT campaigns as well. So they used to collect the indicators of compromise, and they used to cluster them based on the different perspectives they will investigate, and they will try to cluster these groups, which are called as the intrusion sets. So once they have these intrusion sets, they will do the series of data analytics, and they will try to look into this particular intrusion sets from different angles to find out the threat actor behind this particular APT espionage. So this whole process is purely technical from the perspective of security companies. So that's why they don't want to be political about this thing, and that's why they used to give the numbers as APT 1 to 41. So FireEye has come up with this naming convention that they will give names from APT 1 to 3, etc. And Kaspersky also stood on the same thing, and they used to name their APT groups as the famous movie names like Red October and Cloud Atlas, etc. And the interesting naming convention here is that from the security firm called CrowdStrike. So they will reveal the identity of the country or originating country by using various animal names, etc. So if they are mentioning that it was bear, fancy bear or something, so it was like it was originated from Russia. So panda related to the Chinese group, and kitten related to the Iranian groups, and horse related to the Korean groups, and tiger related to Indian groups. So Viceroy Tiger was the famous APT groups that is active in India. So I think this APT this group was actively maintained by RA in India. According to the preliminary investigation from various security agencies, it came to that it was from the RA. So globally, as of now, at the end of 2020, there are around 130 APT groups are that particularly attributed to some countries at the various levels in detail. So over the time, this particular process got evolved, that is collecting the intrusion indicators of compromise and clustering them together, and then they are analyzing this intrusion sets to reveal the APT actor. Over the time, it got evolved, and we used to call this particular process as APT attribution. So basically, this APT attribution will try to answer the two fundamental questions, that is, who is behind this particular cyber activity and why they have done it. So these are all the two preliminary questions that that APT attribution is trying to answer. And APT attribution can be done by the various organizations at the various levels. So the security firms like FireEye and Kaspersky will only look at the technical aspects, but in some cases there are some political bureaucratic organizations will look into the in-depth details of this, they will try to identify particular threat actor or the country of origin, etc. And in some very rare cases like APT1, they will try to dig very deep, and they will try to reveal the personal identities and the personal information of this threat actors behind that particular APT espionage. So as of now, out of 130 APT groups, only 85% of the APT groups are able to identify the countries. Only very few are I can say that only a fraction of APT investigations has resulted in identifying the organization or the individual threat actors behind that particular espionage. So this is the high level overview of this APT attribution. Then we will look into some state-of-the-art literature in terms of APT attributions and how the security firms will actually do this attribution. So now we will, this is the first model called Diamond model for APT attribution. So This was the very old model, I mean, legacy model, I can say that, and it used to structure the data for the APT analysis process. And, this was followed by many security firms for the long time. And in the recent times, most of the new APT attribution mechanisms are in a way derived from this diamond model. So basically, this diamond model will have four pillars. So adversary pillar, victim pillar, infrastructure pillar, and the capability pillar. And adversary pillar will try to identify the malware payloads, and they will try to identify the language settings that they are using, and in what time zones that this particular APT actor is active. For example, in case of APT1, Mandiant has investigated, and they came to know that all the time zone that the attackers are active in the victim networks are exactly correlating to the Chinese official working timestamp. So this gave them an initial lead to identify that the attack might origin from the China. And similarly, they might try to look for the nicknames in the malware payloads, and they will try to correlate that with the various social media platforms or hacking, dark web hacking groups, etc. These are all the aspects that the adversary pillar will cover. And the second pillar was the victim pillar. So in this victim pillar, they will try to identify what sector that the APT attacker has targeted on, and what is the region of that particular attack, and what kind of data that they are stealing from this particular particular organizations. So here I would like to give some example to for the better understanding. So recently, there are many people in the China are suffering from the cancer, and from the statistics of China, we can see that there is a constant increase in the death rate because of the cancer. So there is a lot of research going on from the Chinese government to come up with different techniques to minimize this death rates. So if you can clearly see, the most of the Chinese APT groups are very active in the dark web forms, or in APT groups are very active in stealing the proprietary data or copyright data or the sensitive data related to cancer patients and the health sector data from various organizations across the world. So now we can clearly see that the correlation between the official Chinese government working and the acting of this APT group. So they will go in parallel. So these two pillars, like adversary pillar and the victim pillar, are actually covered with the socio-political axis, and there is a dedicated team working in this direction to tie the loose ends and to give some investigate in this particular area. And the third pillar was the capabilities pillar. So in this capabilities pillar, they will try to identify the malware payloads and whether they have used this payload in any other APT campaign or not, and they will try to identify the techniques and the procedures that the APT groups are using. So this comes under capability pillar. And coming to the infrastructure pillar, they will try to look into the rented servers at the AWS or Google, and they will try to look into the who is data of the malicious domains, and what kind of websites that they have hacked at the initial compromise level to fool the data, fool the users, etc. So these two, capability pillar and the infrastructure pillar, are tied up with the technical axis. So there is a dedicated team working in this direction. So these two political socio-political axis and the technical axis will give some good insights about who is behind this particular APT espionage and why they have done it. So this is the old school technique that most of the intelligence bureaus or security firms related to the governments are using till now. So this is about the diamond model. and the second model was 4C model. So this 4C model was considered as the a milestone in terms of APT research. So because of this 4C model, US in the US courts, five People Liberation Army Chinese officers got officially prosecuted. So this was the first time because of the investigation they are able to find out the culprits and they can able to prosecute that in the US courts, and that's why it's called as a milestone in terms of APT research. So it will have broadly four phases. So it will try to collect the data and it used to cluster the data. From that point of time they will try to go horizontally by identifying the motivation of these particular attackers and what is the country of origin, and then they'll try to identify the person or in charge at this for this particular espionage, and they will try to generate the group of hypotheses for various incidents, and they might accept few hypotheses and they might reject few hypotheses based on the confidence of the the footprints that they have got in this analysis. And finally they will try to identify the threat actor behind this attack. So in order to give a better understanding, I will try to correlate this. I try to correlate this 4C model with the Mandiant's report. So Mandiant has used this particular 4C model to identify the APT1 actors. So in the collect phase, they have investigated more than 900 control and command servers in the victim organizations, and in the cluster phase, they have grouped several malwares based on two things. So most of the malwares are trying to communicate with two malicious websites called blackcake.net and satellitebbs.com, and the culprits use the same email ID address for registering all these domains. So this was the first clue that they have got to proceed further in this investigation. And in the crime versus espionage phase, so they have clearly identified that the exfiltrated data is exactly correlated to the Chinese 5 years plan that they have passed in the parliament of China. And then and the another thing is that these attackers are actively available or active in various organizations at the same time, which is correlating to the Chinese official times. And if in order to perform this kind of attack, it has to be done with thousands of people. It was not just done by set of 4 or 5 people. So this incident gave them the lead that this might be the state sponsored attack from the China. And then they have investigated at the country level that while investigating through various control and command servers, they have found that the IP addresses belonging to the fiber optic company in the Shanghai region of Guangdong district, that is the very closely related to the Chinese People Liberation Army office called 61398. So from that IP address, they are able to reverse map this particular organization, and then they have identified the geolocation of that particular organization as well. And most of the APT attributions will stop at this phase, but in very rare cases, it might go to the next level, that is identifying the person. So APT1, in the APT1 case, Mandiant is actually able to do that task. It was because there are few mistakes done from the APT actors end. The first one was there is a malicious attacker called Dota. So he used his personal number for registering the malicious domains. So this was the first loose thread from the APT attacker side. And the second one was there was the attacker named Ugly Gorilla. So he was active in many dark web forms, and he was actually the student of some university, and he commented on various sections of dark web forms that he was fan of that particular Professor Juhu. And from there they have identified the students of Juhu, and then they will trigger down to the personal identification of this particular threat actor called Ugly Gorilla. So this is how they are actually able to perform the APT attribution in case of APT1. And and the third one was MICTIC framework. Although we have seen Diamond model and 4C model, these are proprietary models. So as of now, we don't have any publicly open framework for performing this APT attribution. So in order to address this problem, security researchers called TIM came up with this Q model, and initially it was considered for a few years, but because this was mostly politically inclined rather than considering the technical aspects, he has majorly covered, only the political considerations. So that's why in 2020, recently, the attacker, the researcher called Timo Stephenson came up with this MICTIC framework. So in this MICTIC framework, there is a dedicated team working in this each and every aspect of, APT attack. So they will try to look the APT from, different perspectives. From the malware perspective, there is a dedicated team working in this direction to identify the language settings of the, binary creation and the timestamps of the binary creations and the strings extracted from the binaries, malicious binaries. And there is a dedicated team working with the, infrastructure to identify the who is data and identifying the DNS records. And there is a dedicated team working for control servers. So they will try to go and seize the, hard disk from various victim networks. So for this control server, it needs to work along with bureaucrats or government agencies to take the necessary permissions and collect the sensitive hard disk from the victim networks. And there is a dedicated team working in this telemetry direction. So this telemetry is most often the passive passive task, so it doesn't need any technical thing. So they just need to analyze the data and come up with they need to go through the series of logs and identify the source IP address and working hours of that particular APT campaign, etc. And according along with this all these things, we need to have a dedicated dark web monitoring team to intercept the dark web traffic. So for example, I can say that the Russian hackers or Russian APT groups want to target the gas pipe smart meters in the smart meters of the gas pipelines across the Europe or in the US. So there is a lot of buzz and there is a lot of activity going in the dark web for exchanging this tutorials for smart meter hacking. And there is a lot of discussion about what are the open source zero-day vulnerabilities available in the smart meters, etc., in the recent trends in the dark web form. So we need to have a dedicated team working along with this direction, and we need to have a dedicated team working for Cubono. So Cubono is basically a Latin term, so which will actually defines who gets the profit at the end of the day. So we need to work in this direction to find out the geopolitical interests of various countries, and we need to collect the material from various parliament discussions, etc., to find out what all who is behind this particular APT espionage. So this is about the MICTIC framework, so which is publicly available. And coming to the conclusion part, so there are many, although we have seen the introduction parts about APT, we have a lot of challenges in terms of APT detection. So unlike any other malware, these APT attacks don't have a single solutions to solve the whole problem. We need to solve the problem at different strategic levels to minimize the damage. And as we have seen, this whole APT cycle. Yeah. So as we have seen, this whole APT cycle is very agile and reconfigurable, so that that the traditional old school systems may not detect them at all. And recently, the targeted APT campaigns are moved towards the smart malware. So we will discuss about the smart malware and what is its potential threat, why it is called as a potential threat to the nation states in the next series of lectures. And after the pandemic, we can see the rise in targeted fileless malware, which will never touch the machine in the throughout its execution. So APT actors are actively using this fileless malwares in the recent times. And from the recent incidents like SolarWinds supply chain attack and Red Echo attack on Indian power grid systems, and Cosmos Bank attack, which compromised the switching environment and the ATM infrastructure compromise in the Indian banks. So these are all the clear evidences that defenders are in very actually in the backseat in terms of APT detection. So we need to have a strong comprehensive approach targeting each and every life cycle phases of APT, and we need to tight the screws for our old school systems, old school defense systems, in order to tackle with this kind of sophisticated threats. So this is the high level overview of the current challenges that the entire India is facing because of this APT. So because of the border tensions, there are so many APT groups are especially from China and Pakistan, are actively targeting the various critical infrastructure organizations or power grid systems in India. So we need to have a come up with different techniques to defend this kind of sophisticated threats. So that's all. I will stop here now, and I would like to take some questions if you have any from your end. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Charan. Any questions from the audience? Okay, so I have like at least two questions that I would like to ask.
Yeah.
So the first one, I think the firm is called Mandiant, right? The one.
Yes. Yes.
So you said that Mandiant, through their analysis, they came to the conclusion that it takes on an average 146 days or so for a particular APT to be detected, right? That is their conclusion. My question is that considering that these APTs are really hard to detect, because and of course, if they are in the system for 146 days, it means that they were really they probably already did a lot of damage before they got detected. My question is, what are some of the typical scenarios through which these attacks actually got discovered? Like what did they really do? So it has to be like maybe the attackers did some mistakes, or maybe something really unusual happened. That is only when they started looking for an APT. So what are the typical scenarios where APTs do get discovered?
Yes, so this is very good question. So let's say I would like to give some two examples. In case of famous Carbonite attack, so the APT actors are active in that network for more than 3 months, so they didn't recognize. And when somebody from the banking environment, they went to the ATM, and then they saw that from the CC cameras the ATM cash started dispensing randomly. So then they have started investigation. And in the recent power grid attacks from the Chinese APTs also, Indian government is, India is not aware of this particular attack. They have strategically compromised various power grids from, from Assam to, Kerala. So when the recorded future, so usually the security firms will analyze the global trends, and they will collect the traffic. So they have reported the Indian government that we have seen some sensitive data from Kerala and Hyderabad, and Assam got exfiltrated to Chinese control and command servers. Then they have started investigation. So this is how typically APT attacks got discovered. So they have to be discovered from the very sophisticated security firms like FireEye, or sometimes they might be discovered because of some small mistake done from the APT attackers. But in the very rare cases, the mistakes will be done from the attackers end, because they are very sophisticated, and they will come up with a strategic plan A, plan B, plan C. So mostly it will be noticed by some analyzing some darknet traffic across the globe. So that's how they are usually got discovered.
There are some global watchdogs which are trying to keep an eye on these people.
Yeah.
And the second part, of course, the second question is already, maybe you've already given a part answer to it, that these attackers usually have plan A, plan B, and plan C. So when you were discussing the diamond model, I could see that at least one aspect of that model is, let us say if I am the attacker, it's easily, it's easily avoidable. And that is, for example, things like time zones.
Yes.
So if I know that you will be looking for the attacker's time zones, I'll probably, maybe the Chinese guys can then schedule the shifts of these attackers in a random fashion so that they cannot be correlated back to the Chinese time zones. So
yes, this is very old, this is very old investigation. But in the recent time, so they will compromise the publicly available AWS servers, and from there they will create the chain of chain of servers. They will create RDP sessions in chain, and from let's say if the attacker is from Russia, he will create a chain and he will log in from somewhere from India or something, and then he will start performing the operations on the victim network. So now this can be easily avoidable.
Yeah, right. Got it. Thank you, Charan. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, so Charan will be with us for at least one more iteration of this talk. That is scheduled to be probably in the first week of December. We'll coordinate with Charan and we'll intimate you about the exact details. But let us take an opportunity to thank Charan to come and give us some very important gyan on cybersecurity. And let's hope that we'll be able to get some more insights from him in the next part of this talk. So thank you, Charan. Thank
Sure,
you.
sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Hopefully we'll meet in the next.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.